Hey,
Hey, Ron Newcomb here with the Indie Coach Podcast. I'm here with my new friend Nicholas Rice, and appreciate you coming on. All right, so this is relatively new to the podcast. I've never done this before. Nicholas and I swear we've met, and I hold that true, or been part of some community filmmaking group that we were on. Some chat. His name looks really familiar, and we have a mutual friend in common, and he's doing some awesome stuff, and already a fan, I can tell. And I just said, "Hey, brother, would you be willing to get on a call?" And then I just randomly was like, "Would you be okay if we made it a podcast?" And because he's a podcaster, he was like, "Let's do it." So I have not prepared any questions, which is totally not like me because this is I don't want to say last minute, but it is an opportunity to have a
there you
real
go.
authentic discussion where I'm truly am inquisitive about what Nicholas has going on. So this is going to be a little bit just frankly from shooting from not the hip but the heart because I really just want to know this stuff. And
Yeah,
so he was gracious enough to agree to kind of do this. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format, but probably will feel the same because I've been doing it now for a good little bit. But I just wanted people to know kind of the context around that I might not be following like a regular question formula. I'm just going to be asking questions that I generally would like to know. And then if it works out that you, the listener, love it too, then that's all the better. So, Nicholas, I would love for you to just maybe do an introduction of yourself
sure.
and just tell us a little bit of how you got into this whole crazy filmmaking venture.
That's a good way to put it. Crazy filmmaking adventure, because I wouldn't explain it any other way, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I actually came into the industry whenever I was 34. I'm now 42. Came in as an actor. I used to be a worship leader for 16 years, so I already knew how to perform on stage when it comes to leading the music for churches. And then God's like going to acting, and I was like, okay. And so that's the short version. But went into acting, and then whenever COVID hit, whenever the lockdown hit, is whenever I got into writing and producing, and really fell in love with the producing process. I mean, I call myself a writer, but I leave that to better people. I can collaborate with the best of them, especially my business partner, who I also have a podcast with. His name is Nick. My name is Nick. I'm an old millennial. He's a Gen Xer, so we argue a lot. So we call it the Nick's Right podcast. So there's a Nick that's always right, and we just like you said before the podcast. Like I don't want to start talking and then we miss something. We say to each other because we have smackdown arguments at the gym. He runs the gym that I work out at. And so I'm at the gym for 4 hours a day, not because I'm working out the whole time, but I take a lot of meetings at the gym. I walked into the gym today. I was on a producer call, and there's a young actor that's at the gym that I've talked to a couple of times, and I was like, "This is the life of a producer," and I just showed him my phone, and because it was just me on a Zoom conference talking about raising money for funds or for projects or whatever it is. And I tell Nick all the time, like we need to get those glasses that have the camera and just live
Yeah.
stream our life because there's sometimes we'll have smackdown yelling at each other arguments and it's hilarious because we're best buds, and we'll let it just roll off our backs, but we're also in business together. And he has a very different take on business than I do. I'm a very, like you said earlier, shoot from the hip. If it works, it works. Let's go make some money. He's like, no, let's calculate it. Let's overthink it. And I'm like, stop overthinking. You already have the what do you call it? You already have the proof that it worked because him and I have an Airbnb business together, and I do Airbnbs. He does Airbnbs, and we're going to get one together to actually pay for future episodes of our podcast because we actually like to do it in studio. We found a really good studio here in Dallas that gave us kind of a not an under the table deal, but a discounted deal because they like us, and it's just easier to do it because we tried to record it here in my apartment. I'm sorry. It just didn't turn out the way we wanted it. We got spoiled is what we got. So we're in business together, and he's the writer. I call him a writer actor. I call myself a producer actor writer, and I do it in that order because those are the order of importance. Nick is a. I tell people this all the time. Nick is the best writer on the face of this planet that no one knows about. He's been writing since he was 9. He understands how to tell a story. He knows how to make it exciting. If you have a certain way you want to tell the story, he understands how to take direction. Uh, Great collaborator, great writer, and he's a good actor. He used to do a lot of stage acting. So anyway, I wish he could be here if he would have, but he's at a funeral right now. So, but we were connected via, I'll just say his first name, via Chris, our mutual friend of ours, and Chris is one of our investors at my company. He invested in our film fund. And I know the email that he sent me saying, hey, and then I saw your name and I'm like, I know this guy. Like, have we had a conference call before? I think we have, and I think it was over one of his other projects, which was the documentary that he had.
Oh
Is that
yeah,
right?
that
Yeah,
is right.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now
yeah.
it's coming into alignment. Yes,
Yeah,
that
and I think we had a conference call over that whenever I think he got Kevin Sorbo on board, and I was doing at the time it was called Preemptive Strike. That was the project that I was trying to get off the ground. It's now called Beyond Sight, and just so much life has happened since then. That was over 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, and the industry certainly has kind of moved along. So I have one of those writers as well. I kind
Mm.
of see myself the same way. I'm a producer, director now, producer, director,
Okay.
writer, actor. But I got into this thing through acting. That was my
Yep.
first love, my first passion.
Yeah.
And I'm a really good first draft, or I'm a really good rewriter, but I cannot rewrite my own stuff.
No, dude.
I can't see it. I just people
I
are like itchy, and I'm like, that's the best thing I got. That's what's on paper. I wouldn't have,
yeah.
it's the best I got. Or I can see people's mistakes and go, I think we could take this up this way.
Yep.
And my
Yep.
writing partner is prolific and is a fantastic writer, and I too.
Is that Mark?
No,
Oh, okay.
um, this is a guy named Jay Love,
Okay.
and funny enough, we there's a couple of faith elements, and the podcast is not a faith podcast, but there obviously some funny connection points there where
Yeah.
I went to church, sat down, and when they go, turn and introduce yourself, kind of thing, which is pretty common.
Can't
Uh,
stand
yeah,
that part of the church, dude. Like,
so, so I turn and I never lead with, "Hey, I'm a IT guy," because that's my W-2 right now.
right,
His
right.
lead with, I'm a filmmaker. And he was like, oh my gosh. And this is in Manassas, Virginia. And he's like, wow, what are you doing here? And he goes, I'm like literally struggling, not struggling, but wrestling with God on what to do. Get out of it
Okay.
or stay in it. He had sold a couple scripts, been optioned, got and produced his own stuff, but really got close to being the big leagues. Several times, and he continues to do that. And he was kind of wrestling with God moment. And then here I come out
I
of the
love it.
blue, and you don't meet another filmmaker in Manassas, Virginia, and it's a small church to boot. So obviously, him and I were like, this seems to be rather divine intervention. So let's keep the connection going. And him and I kept meeting, kept connecting. And then I read one of his things. It was a pilot that just blew me away. And I was like, oh my
Mm,
gosh, man, do you want to write together? And so we've been writing ever since and have written. We've got together, we have about four scripts, but the total scripts, like between both of us, we have about 12. So
nice.
we've got a nice library of content. In fact, I'm working to turn six of those into novels. And I'm
Okay,
got two of them done. I'm working on four more. So it's just more writing, just in a different way. But
dude.
man, that's great to hear about your background. I think that's super important to kind of establish and to give some context and understanding of things. Um, what do you think about the daggone incentive that just got passed in
The
Texas?
Texas incentives. I
Oh, yeah.
honestly, I think it's a little late, but here's the way I think, and I'm going to be very straightforward because I'm currently an influencer online, and I say that because I've successfully built two TikTok accounts over 10,000 followers. One's at 13, one's at 24,000, and it's all commentary. Like I just commentate about stuff, and most of it's political. So I'm not going to be shying away from my political views here. But when it comes to the Texas film incentive, my fear, I want to start with my fears. My fear is all the liberals will come here. That's
Yeah.
my fear. But I know there's also a lot of good people in California who believe how I believe, conservatives, whatever, who are just afraid to speak up because they're afraid to lose work.
Yeah.
So hopefully those are the only ones that come to Texas. But we'll see. When it comes to the pros, I want to shoot all of my films in Texas. There's just so much here. and there's so many new studios that are being built.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. And I'm even trying to talk my boss, like, move to Texas, bro. Get out of Michigan. Like, who would want to live in Michigan with those kind of winters? But we shot 426, which is a movie we have coming out. We shot it in Detroit, so we drove up there because his whole crew and equipment. So it was easier for me and Nick and Josh, who were here in Texas, to go up there than to bring the whole crew down here. My gosh, as soon as I get on a podcast, people just want to start bombarding me with text messages and calls. But yeah, I think the incentive is going to be great. We just actually established an Austin address, so we now qualify for all those incentives for all of our projects. And I wanted to tell you this, since you just told me that you guys have a lot of films on your slate and you kind of are a writing duo. We're looking to expand our teams. Like, we don't want to have just one staff writer. I mean, we'll have a guy. Nick will probably be like the lead, but we need to build a team of writers to where he's not inundated with everything. And so he has an intern right now, which is great. We talked to another guy that's also connected to Chris. His name is Mark. He's a doctor,
Yeah, he is
anesthesiologist.
yes, anesthesiologist. Good grief.
Yeah,
Mark
yeah.
is outstanding and another fantastic writer.
Well,
Fantastic.
that's the thing, Nick. Okay, let me give you an example of the stuff because we've had people come to us and say, "Hey, I have this idea." Everybody's got an idea, and
Everybody.
so Nick is our staff writer. And so what happened was his first collaboratory thing that he did, other than with me and with Carl, was Stacy Dash. Do you know who Stacy Dash is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now they collaborated, they did well together, but it was a lot of back and forth,
Hmm.
And I don't do that with Nick. I did that a little bit with one of my projects, and then I realized he was just a better writer, so I was like, just do it. Like, you have free reign. And so once I learned that kind of the hard way. She hasn't necessarily learned that yet. Not that she doesn't have any good ideas. She has some great ideas, but what I want to kind of get under or through her is, hey, just trust Nick's process. It's a great process. But he went through that, and then he read through one of Mark's films that we're going to do,
Yes.
and it's called Tiny Little Magics or something like that.
Hmm.
Nick read through the first act, and he's like, Nick, come here. Let me show you something. And I walked around his desk, and he pointed to the end of Act One and where it said end of Act One. He's like, this guy's a good writer. Just because he recognized that this is the end of Act One. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's great. But what about the rest of it? He's like, no, this guy knows how to write.
Yeah.
I don't have to.
I
And
can get
so, like, we're going to expand our teams. Not because we have a good producing team, but we need to expand our editing team, our writing team. That way, because we have a great crew, man. Like, when I saw them work on 426, my gosh, you want to talk about a well-oiled machine.
Hmm.
It was incredible to watch because, okay, you're in film. How many pages normally can you shoot in one day for
Oh,
for a 100-page script? How many
yeah,
pages in one day
exactly.
can you shoot?
I try to go after and this is being conservative. Admittedly, it kind of depends. If it's true independent, we're running a gun and we got to get page count in, I go higher, but I try to stick to 5 pages if I can.
That's exactly what I was thinking because that's normal for the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's basically 5 minutes. Every page is about a minute, and
Hmm.
so you're shooting about 5 minutes. We shoot between 20 and 25 a day.
That's
Like,
um,
it's incredible. And of
mhm.
course, don't get me wrong, we're shooting for 15 hours.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's longer because we're all in it and we're ready to go. And
Yeah.
the way I kind of did 4026 as the lead producer is because it's loosely based off of My Failed Marriage. And it's called 426. It's based off of Ephesians 426, where it says, "Don't let the sun go down on your anger." So it's about spiritual warfare inside the marriage. And we made it very just gritty, so a lot of demon attacks, a lot of this, and of course they get out of it by speaking the name of Jesus. And it's very going to hit you hard. But when it comes to writing it, I let Nick take the reins on that, and then him and Carl started collaborating. I forgot I had a train of thought there that I just lost. You ever do that?
Oh,
Like,
dude, I'm over 50. So have I done?
oh, really?
Yes, I am over
Dude,
50.
I thought you were in your 30s.
Yeah, I'm 10 years older than you. In fact, I'm 52. So
Wow. Well, color me
yeah.
jealous, man, because I get told I look like I'm in my 50s. And so, but I've always looked older. My entire life, I was 18. People thought I was 25.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I,
it is my dad. I mean, it's my parents, but my dad also has always looked extremely young.
Yeah.
And he was a police officer. I was too for a little while, but he was a cop, and people used to, bust his chops. And of course, they were all his buddies. But now my dad's in his 70s, and thank God he's still around. So his buddies are all, they look like
Yeah.
70, and my dad still looks like he's, 59
Oh,
or something.
I
So
love it, dude.
yeah, he's like, see who's laughing now, suckers. So,
I
so,
used to
so
go
you,
live a lot on TikTok, and one comment I got was, "You look like a young dude cosplaying as an old dude." I was like, "Oh, that's good."
all right. So you're down in Texas, and I am seeing a lot of people go to Texas, and I'm a little bit jealous because I do feel like there's some cool stuff happening there. It kind of feels like when Atlanta first started to get some momentum. I certainly remember that, and I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like Texas, and there's other places. It seems like there's a lot of fair weather things where they go to where the tax incentive is. They're like
Mm,
locusts. They suck out all the money of that place and then they leave. But
right.
400 million, now that's going to take some time to
Yeah.
to liquidate, and that creates longevity and really people to create studios. Like you're saying, there is
Right.
Zach Levi, the
Yeah.
actor, has announced that he's looking to do a studio there and a really robust one. I know the producer from gosh, it starts with an S. It was on Angel Studios. Not if you're, maybe I'll think of it in a minute, but
Uh,
uh,
an S.
and it's yeah, I'm not gonna be able to think of it.
You know, I'm talking about
Is
Chad Gunderson.
no, no.
Okay. All right.
Though it starts with a C. That's funny. I think it's Casey or something like.
I don't recognize it.
Anyways, he's out of Texas, and he
Okay.
too is putting together a studio
Okay.
because people I think want to really kind of establish. It was always go do the slate, and everybody was trying to raise money for slates. Like, okay, I've heard
Right.
that, strategy enough. We need to be thinking a little bit differently because I've been trying to raise money for 5 years and I haven't gotten money in for my
Yeah.
slate. I've raised a little
Yeah.
bit of monies for here and there, but never enough to really go do the slate. So
Right.
now people I see are kind of shifting in their thinking to really try to set some structure up. And then obviously out of Texas, you also have famous people like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And a favorite of mine is Robert Rodriguez.
Mm.
Obviously,
Hmm.
he's here and he's flat out said he's not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
so, he's really kind of anchored, even when the incentives weren't that great. He was still trying to promote Texas and do things in Texas. And he
Oh yeah.
just did an equity crowdfunding raise where they did, which was kind of interesting because it is a slate of films that he's going to be a producer on, but will direct at least one of them. I think it's 6 films, and the total they raised was 2 million. I don't know if that was all in what they need for all six
Right.
films. I doubt it, but
No, not for Robert Rodriguez.
not yeah. Um, but that did go to 2 million, and that was I thought kind of interesting. So I'm always trying to keep my nose to the grindstone of like how are people
Sure.
doing things with you being in Texas, seeing all this stuff happening. You have, it seems to me, some very cool, unique, and interesting things going on from your kind of business proposition. Uh, However much you're willing to share, what do you
Oh,
have
I'll
going
share
on?
all of it. So we have. I tell this to people in the industry all the time, especially whenever I'm talking to investors, because we have a film fund as well that we're raising. I think we are about to close it out in the next 5 days because it'll be. I think for the first year it'll be 1 million, and we'll be able to make 5 to 7 films with that, and then the second year will be at 1.5 million. And so it's we've cracked the code on how to make money in film. And I think it's already been done in Hollywood, but Hollywood didn't like it because they didn't get that kind of money up front. So I don't know. Have you seen the movie Twins?
Yeah, or Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that movie, they worked out a different deal with the actors. They got paid zero money up front. But they worked a deal in the back end where they owned Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger owned 60% of that movie on the back end.
Dang.
So that's a huge chunk. And they made so much money off of that that Hollywood was like, we're never doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So That's how budgets get inflated because they're paying the above the line costs to the producers, to the directors, to the actors, especially the A-list actors. So what we've done is we've created this model where we spend pennies on the dollar, but they don't lose any of the quality. So 426 is about to come out. Hopefully, we're shooting for a September release, right before Halloween, because it is a supernatural thriller, but not on Halloween because of all the blockbusters that'll come out at that time. But the thing that we've done is I did a mock draft of the budget for 426. It was supposed to cost about 2.6 million, and we spent less than 100K. So
Wow.
therefore, there's no way we can't make there's no way we don't make money on it. It's gonna make money. And when we told our distributors, and I'm pretty sure they don't want me talking about it, but I don't care. When we talked to our distributors, they're like, "Don't tell anybody else that." I'm not going to tell you the exact amount, but
Yeah.
it's less than 100K. They're like, "Just tell us," but they're like, their jaws dropped because they were like, "Holy cow, are you serious?" Because they saw the trailer and they were like, "Are you serious?" Because they thought it was, million, 2 million, $3 million film, and they're like, "Whoa!" They're like, "We'll write you a check for that right now." And I was like, "Okay," we were like, "Yes, do that so we can pay off our investors."
Yeah.
But it opens the door up for people to want to invest in film in high quality films without having to spend million, 2 million, $3 million for one investor if you have like a $10 million film. So we have created a system to where we not only have the distribution in place, we not only, I'm sorry, I keep cutting out. Am I, no?
Nope.
Am I
Good.
cutting out?
Nope. You're all good.
Okay. Um, so we have the distribution in place, but we also have a way to build a film fund that usually would be built up to 100 million. We only have to build it to 1 million to make 5 to 7 films, and what I don't understand when people want to inflate the budget, and we don't like doing SAG films because SAG is just inviting red tape. And don't get me wrong, I used to be on the SAG bandwagon as an actor. Like I wanted to be a SAG actor. I wanted to have my SAG card or my SAG eligibility, and it's just dumb. I'm sorry, I was speaking out against the SAG machine. It's dumb because I called because we had a lead actress that we hired for 426, and she's a SAG actress, but she's never been cast as the lead. And so she's been acting since she was 5. She's never been cast. She's super talented, but she was a SAG actress. So I had to make the call to SAG before we actually gave her the role, just to see what it would take to make the movie SAG. And all I got from SAG was, we're just going to invite red tape. That's all we're going to do. It's just going to be red tape all over the place. So I called our lead actress and I'm like, "Hey, we want you as a lead, but we're not making it SAG." She's like, "I'm okay. Like, let's do this." So I found out some other SAG rules that it's okay as long as the movie's not million plus, they won't come after you. But I'm just like, come on. I'm over all the unions because we figured out a way to do it, or people are going to make a lot of money off of this. Even the actors, like we offer them some money on the back end, they're going to make like $100,000+ off of this movie just off of their percentage.
Hmm.
So we've like I said, we've cracked the code on how to do all this, and it's not just because we of our system, but we also have AI models that are not like the Disney AI models, to where it condenses down the pre-production and the post-production to where it doesn't take the human element out of it, but it cuts down all the tedious work. So like your line item budget, your shooting schedule, your financial projections, like that kind of stuff that has to be packaged together before you actually start pre-production. We have AI models where you just feed in the script and it pops out all that stuff and gives you an idea. Like it'll even like give you a breakdown of like locations you can use. So, and that company that created that AI, those AI models, we're about to go public with that company. So we literally have cracked the code. Like this is how you make money in film without taking away all the human aspect about it, but still have high quality film with spending pennies on the dollar. So that's basically what we're doing. And I say that 426 is the kind of the model, but we've already have proof of concept for what we're doing. Like there's a couple of movies we released with using these AI models even 10 years ago before it became a thing called AI. We utilized the tools that we have. And I think the one movie was like 700% profit, and another movie we spent 100K on and made 10 million. Like it's just, and that was back in the day. but the model works. And then we implemented that model on 426, and we started out with that budget being 30K, but then the movie just started becoming bigger and bigger and bigger than what we realized, and so now it's like right under 100K. So that's what we've got going on. We've already got the sequel written for 426, and lo and behold, it's called 427. And it is based off of scripture. That's why we call it that. But we made these movies to be gritty. You know what I mean? Like we want to show the real side of spiritual warfare. A lot of spiritual warfare or the type of spiritual warfare that people don't want to acknowledge it even exists, because it does. And so you'll see it in 426, and then 427 is going to get even more epic. It has, oh man, I love the story of 427. But we're about to go into pre-production for at least two other films, and we're always open for investors to come on board, even though we're about to close out the film fund. Like Chris came on board, we wanted to get him in before this big fish that we had come in. That way he can get a little bit higher percentage of all the films we're doing. So yeah, man, it's a great time to be in the industry because Hollywood is going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And the distributor that we're working with, that's their goal, is to actually bankrupt Hollywood. They only take 10% on the back end.
Yeah.
That's unheard of for a worldwide distribution company.
Yeah.
Because they went through all the conglomerates in Hollywood and they got nickel and dime for every little thing. They barely saw any profits on any of their movies. So they decided to create their own distribution company, and man, has the Lord blessed them. So they're the distributors for Nefarious.
Yes. Okay. That, by the
Yep.
way, that was the movie I was thinking of.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That was kind of the inspiration for what we did.
Okay.
But here's what I've had some conversations with the lead actress because she was heavily on set with all of us. We covered that set in prayer. But here's the difference between 426 and Nefarious. Nefarious didn't really give a speak the name of Jesus type of redemptive ending. You know what I mean? It still hit really hard. A lot of every fact in that movie was completely true. But even while we were on set for 426, we know that the finality of our movie is speaking the name of Jesus, because it says in James, resist the devil and he will flee from you, and they tremble at the sound of his name. We had to incorporate that because both of the characters, the wife, which is, Ariana, she was an atheist in the movie, in the story, and then the lead actor, who is Antonio Sabata Jr., he's kind of like a carnal Christian in the movie. And by the end of the movie, they both have solidified their faith, and the woman has come to know Jesus through her husband. So it's got a great redemptive ending, and the stories we can tell you when it comes to the BTS of shooting that specific scene, when they're in their prayer closet and the demons are beating on the door to get to them, and the door's starting to melt, and the demons' faces are coming through the door, and the wife's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, just speak the name of Jesus. And of course, what happens is, and I'm about to give away the ending. What happens is the husband starts to say the Lord's Prayer, Jesus, hallowed be thy name. And that's whenever he comes out of the dream, because it's in a dreamscape. And then she's like, I don't know what to do. And while he's in the real world and she's still in the dreamscape, but she's laying right next to him, he starts to pray for her, but whispering in her ear. And he's writing, I love you on her hand, like with his finger. And in the dream, she sees I love you start shining through her hand. And she starts hearing him pray through her
Yeah.
ear, and then she basically, I'm getting chills. She basically just speaks like, Jesus, hallowed be thy name. And that's when she comes out of the dream. They embrace, and she looks at the closet door, and there's scratch marks on the door because she realized this actually happened.
Yeah.
And oh man, and I could tell you stories about how that scene actually went down and the type of worship that happened because of that character having to get into that mode, like Ariana had to get into that mode for that specific scene, and how Carl directed her through that. It was just a powerful moment. I say all that to say this: we didn't have any of the issues on set the way we've heard Nefarious had issues on set, even though they covered their set in prayer as well. But because our movie had a finality of speaking the name of Jesus, we didn't encounter any of those issues.
Hmm.
And because some of our story is based off of our unit production manager, her name is Cami. She has a really hard time getting pregnant. Her first child was a miracle baby, and she just recently, we just found out the past few weeks that she's pregnant again. she was telling her story to Ariana, and Ariana prayed over her womb, and now she's like 6 months pregnant. And
Wow.
so like the stories that are going to come out of this, dude, is flat out awesome. And there is a difference of like what we experienced on set and what the people in Nefarious experienced on set. Very different, because I believe that we had the finality of speaking the name of Jesus. Which, just hearing that, I guarantee you it's not cheesy.
Yeah.
Like, the movie's not Christian cheesy at all. Like, there is grit in this one. We even have our supporting actress. Her name is Amanda. She's going to be our horror meme. And I can't wait for her to become famous because of her horror meme, because she plays the feminist best friend of the wife. And whenever the lead actor, Antonio, is going through the house trying to find his wife, a TV comes on, he sees his wife. And when he gets up close to the TV, Amanda's character flashes and her skin starts to decay as she's yelling, "We are Legion." And so you kind of just, it's
Yeah.
going to be hilarious. It's going to be hilarious. People are going to jump.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for her to become a horror meme. That's going to be fantastic.
Those are
So,
small goals. Do you guys
yeah.
have what is kind of the distribution plan, kind of the outlet, and maybe even marketing? Is it more traditional, more kind of, hey, we're going to do it a little different? What are you guys thinking there?
We're going to do a kind of a hybrid of a lot of things. We're going to do some traditional marketing. We're going to do some new kind of marketing. But we hired Antonio Sabata Jr. for a reason, because he has direct connections to Newsmax and Fox. And he's going to get on to, whenever we start promoting the movie, he's going to get on both of those outlets and basically say, hey, because last time he promoted a movie that was about spiritual warfare, it broke the website because so many people were going to the website and
Wow.
signing up for the. So we hired him for his, not only his acting skills, but also for his promotional value. Because as a producer, you have to think of that. You have to think of
Yeah.
what's going to be best for the entire project.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this: if you have any actors or anybody who, well, okay, let's just stick with actors. If you have any actors that are reluctant to get on social media, they need to get over themselves and get on social media and build a following.
Yeah.
Because producers and casting directors will look at your following, because that just adds value. It adds what we call promotional value, because that's free advertising. That's free advertising for the project.
Yeah.
So we don't have to pay extra stuff for that, but it also gets it out to an audience that we want you and your audience. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
reason why people go after A-list actors, because they bring an audience.
Yeah.
So just if they're listening, build a following. So when it comes to our marketing, we're going to do all the social media marketing. We're going to do all that, and our distributor is going to probably put it. I wouldn't say limited, but it'll be between 600 and 1,000 theaters domestically. But we just made a connection with a guy who's got connections to about 60,000 theaters worldwide.
Wow.
And he loves what we're doing. So we're going to definitely, hopefully, strike a deal between not only him and our distributor, because they're kind of separate. What we're trying to do is we want to create a relationship between that guy and our distributor, that where they can work together on this. And I think both of them will be very happy about that, because the guy who has the 60,000 theaters, he actually, because he owns a theater chain in Michigan called Imagine Theaters, he actually hosted Nefarious's premiere.
Hmm.
So like there is a connection there. Because the distribution company that did Nefarious, the people who own that distribution company were also the filmmakers of Nefarious.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's going to be a lot of synergy there. But they're going to take care of some of the P&A. We'll take care of some of the P&A on our end, but we're going to get very, very strategic and very creative when it comes to all that, because we did hire influencers to be in the movie instead of like really big name actors. That way they have that they have the acting skills, but they also have the promotional value.
Yeah.
So you just have to think outside the box, man. There's no reason why you spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on P&A.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
No, particularly not in today's economy. I don't even know if it's smart. I do. Just a quick sidebar. When I actually was on staff at a church for a period of time, and it was just after the Passion, but
Mm.
when Rocky Balboa, I think, came out, and really good movie. I liked it too. I really like Sly. He's come out about his faith and all that thing. So a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of positive. Okay. I want to preface that. And it wasn't him. It was the distributor had reached out to me because I had started this little film group, and the church was extremely sizable in my area. And they had,
Got it.
I don't know, somehow found out that I had this film group, and they came out and was like, "Hey, would you be willing to take on a few posters?" And I thought, sure, why not? I'm happy to help. And just the disconnect of what like I was offering and what the church could actually do, and even frankly allow me to do. They sent me thousands of posters. This marketing package they sent me must have cost tons of money. I felt
Yeah.
horrible because I was like, what are you guys thinking that I'm going to plaster, like it's a movie theater or just a Broadway theater. I'm going to plaster posters all over the church. I mean, I might be able to
Yeah.
get one poster up, one, maybe,
One. Yeah.
and even then it feels a little weird. Like we're proselytizing the church itself and then trying to monetize it. And Jesus walked into the synagogue and flipped tables over against that
Yeah.
thing. Every
Yeah.
Christian knows that story, and we all feel a little weird about it. So there was just a disconnect between the distributor and the marketing. They only saw us believers as an audience. They didn't really
Yeah.
understand us as an audience and as people. They just saw us as an audience.
Yeah.
I will defend, though. I think Sly saw us as people, and he
Right.
was going around doing speaking engagements and engaging people. He was not trying to put posters, but that's when I knew that the Hollywood was kind of missing the mark there. On that note,
Yeah.
where Hollywood does a lot of stuff wrong. I think it's easy for us independents to point out the wrong things, but amongst Christendom, I think that they point to everything is wrong in Hollywood. And there is a ton of things that Hollywood does right that we
Okay.
kind of dismiss. And I'm like, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, there's a reason why they do some things. What would you say? And it's kind of a two-part question.
Mm.
What does Hollywood do well, and what do independents do wrong? So well in Hollywood and wrong in independent. You could start with either one.
Well in Hollywood and wrong and independent. Oh gosh, I'm not a fan of Hollywood. Um, oh. What? Okay, all right. If I had to think in the Hollywood mind, like what they do well, I mean, I understand the reasons for the unions. That's make sure everybody gets paid, that make sure everybody gets paid for their hard work. Like, I get all of that. I totally understand. Uh, do I think that they inflate the budgets? I mean, yes, they do. But if they do it the Hollywood way, you're almost guaranteed a high quality film, even if it's written trash. Like it's going to be aesthetically pleasing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm scrounging right now to
No, I
tell
think
you
that's a
what
good one. They definitely know how to execute. They
yeah, okay, that's a good. I mean, I'd still think they if they got on our model, they'd execute more
yeah,
because they're tied down by the union. I'm not a fan of Hollywood, dude.
yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because if Hollywood and the example is, and this is not a Hollywood production, but The Chosen is kind of an example because it sparked Hollywood to do House of David. And I don't know if you've seen House of David.
Not yet. It's on my to-do list.
It's
I caught like 5 minutes.
fantastic.
So I caught 5 minutes and I turned it off because I have a bunch of little kids and I want them to see it. So I was like, I don't want to waste, watch it and then
Yeah,
not see it. So I'm making it like a family thing.
good,
I'm like,
good. Not, I will say this. I don't know how old your kids are, but I will say this. They nailed it on the action sequences. Nailed it.
yeah,
And it's not a lot of blood and gore, but dude, you know what's happening. Like this guy's like just chopping this guy up with the sword in one of the scenes, and you don't have to guess what's happening. But they didn't like show the blood splatter or anything like that. Very, very good. Now, I think from what I hear, that director is atheist,
hmm.
but he did the movie very accurately to the scripture. Now, did he take creative liberty? He did, but I think he took him in the right direction because there's a scene at the very beginning. If you watch the first 5 minutes, that means you saw him get struck by the spear. Okay, so that's a symbolism of Christ's spear in his side.
Hmm.
And when I heard that symbolism, I was like, oh, that's fantastic, even though that didn't happen.
Hmm.
But that was a great
Super cool.
creative way to put that out there. And I've been saying this even before I got into entertainment was if Hollywood or Disney or whoever would just swallow their effing pride and do these stories to a T of what the word says it is, they would make billions, not millions. They would make billions of dollars because the church would flock to the theater to see those things. Like they dropped the ball on Noah. They did. You dropped the ball. I'm sorry. You
Crazy.
took
I don't even
way
know
too
what
much
that
creative
was.
liberty there.
Don't
Yeah,
even know what
it
that
definitely
was.
wasn't the story of Noah. It was
No,
dumb. And so like
crazy.
well, I mean, where in the story does it say there's rock people climbing
Yeah,
around and then whenever they die, light shoots
yeah,
up? And I'm sorry, that's stupid. And they
yeah,
did that on purpose. And
yeah.
then don't get me started on Exodus with Christian Bale.
Yep,
Like, really? He's talking to a
yep.
calm down real quick. Because it just doesn't make any sense. But if they would just and I think they are slowly figuring it out, and I think House David is kind of proving that. If they would just do it to a T of what the Bible says, they would make like billions of dollars. It would be a no-brainer. But they're not in it for the money. They're in it to push their agenda. And that's why I just don't like Hollywood. Like I saw a meme the other day about Disney execs meeting, and it was a cartoon meme where in the background they had these charts where all their numbers are going down, their profits are going down, their viewership's going down, but the execs in the meme were like, "But let's just keep doing what we're doing. Maybe something magical will happen." And
Yeah,
I'm like, "Wow, that's a new kind of stupidity." You know what I mean? And but that's what they're doing. Like they're
that is
continuing to
what they're
push
doing.
agendas. They're continuing to push feminism. They're continuing to push all this, and no one wants that. And the people who do want it is a very small number. Like
Yeah,
you have to understand Disney's their audience is parents. Their audience isn't kids. It's parents. Because if you can't get past the parents, the kids are not going to see the movie.
yeah,
It doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so what independents do wrong? I do have a list here. Okay, I had to scrounge around when it comes to getting the good that the Hollywood does. The what independents do wrong is kind of what Hollywood does wrong as well. They basically try to emulate Hollywood, and they need to stop that. It's independent for a reason. You're not going with Hollywood for a reason. There's always a better way to do it, especially when people inflate budgets. So independents need to learn that whenever, especially if you're breaking out, like if it's your first film does not need to be a $10 million film. I'm sorry, your first film needs to be a $10,000 film that you put yourself, that you do all the hard work, that you just put out there, that you go to film festivals. Like you, that's how you need to get people's eyes on you.
Yeah.
Now, if the Lord blesses it, like it kind of how it happened with 426, we were only going to spend. It originally started as an idea that me and Nick were just going to shoot here because we have Airbnbs. So we're just going to use Airbnbs as our shooting locations. So that will cut down costs. It's in the area, so we don't have to travel anywhere. We can just spend $10,000 on like editing and color correction and all this other stuff. So we're going to do it very low base or very low budget and just make a ton of money off of it because we had a distributor that we could go through. And then I pitched it to Carl, my boss, and he's like, "Okay, I'll come in for 10K as well." And then now it's a 20K film. And then I was like, "Well, hang on, let me call one of our investors. Got an investor on board. He's going to put up 30K." So now that is so me and Carl didn't have to put up any money. So now it's a 30K film. And then we started shooting. And then we were like, crap, we're going to have to spend a lot of money on editing because we shot a lot in 12 days. We shot the whole movie in 12 days.
That's crazy.
And so it just kind of kept snowballing. So, but before that, I was trying to make my first film, an $11.2 million film that no one wanted to invest in because they didn't know me. They barely knew the people that are attached. I think that's what independents really, really have trouble doing because they think because of Hollywood, they think a $10 million film is a low budget film because to Hollywood it is. But you can't do it like Hollywood. Like you have to come up with new ways of doing it. Like I know a lot of guys are making like Key and Peele, like they made a ton of money off of YouTube, like just doing skits for YouTube, and they just blew up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's other ways of doing it.
yeah,
And I think as a creative, you have to think outside of the box. So independent, and it's never like no one's ever going to be able to replicate what we did with 426 to a T. Like something's going to be different, but we have a model that you can learn from and do it yourself. So I think that's what independents do wrong is they get their eyes really big and they're like, I want to do this like a Hollywood film. I want this to be high quality. You can have the high quality without spending the money. There's too much technology today that you don't have to spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
So you can rent the equipment, you can do all the legwork yourself. Like there's no excuse if you ask me. Raise $20,000, shoot a film, put it out there. Like, come on. So, and if it's a good story, people will get behind you for no money.
Yeah.
They're like, I just want to be a part of that story. You
Yep.
know, like who wouldn't? Like we're doing a film for the 2000 national title team for Oklahoma for football because that's the last time they won a national title. But that was a special year. That was my senior year in high school, and we're already in connection with the university. I've already done 17 interviews for the football boys that played that year. Uh, the type of special year that was, they were counted out. They started out number 19 in the season. They ended up being number one, and they had what we call the gauntlet, which was they had to play the number 12 team, the number 2 team, and the number 1 team back to back to back, and they ran them like they went undefeated for the entire year. They had scares where they came back and won, and they stay undefeated. It was just a great season. They had obstacles that they had to adapt to, and they because of their camaraderie and their closeness, their adhesiveness as a team, they just kept going. I remember one of the receivers said, "You know that most teams, a quarterback will signal to the receiver in some way that the ball's coming to him." He's like, "Nick, that touchdown that I had against Nebraska, all I had to do was look at Josh, and I knew the ball was coming to me." Like that's how cohesive that team was. And I had one question that I asked all these players. I said, "Do you believe that your cohesion was because of your faith in Jesus?" 90% of them said yes. Like, and I even had one guy, he wouldn't even let me ask the question whenever I was asking him the interview questions. He just stopped me in the middle of the interview. He's like, "Let me just stop you right there, Nick. The reason why we were so successful that year is because of Jesus." And I'm like, "Okay, Bubba, all right." Like, I was getting there, but I'm glad you interrupted me. That made for a good moment. So that movie is probably going to be a little bit. We're going to be able to shoot that movie between 500K and $1 million. The budget's set for 4.9 million. We will absolutely come under that. It is a period piece because there's 2000 compared to now,
Yeah.
but there's always a way to do it that independents they don't need to just be creative in the story. They need to be creative in the business as well.
Yeah.
And so if they're not getting creative in the business, their project's going to sit on the shelf.
What what does a I'm sure you're getting pitched a lot by filmmakers. What does what does a project have to have for you to get excited about it?
Okay, it doesn't have to be the exact story that I want to hear. It has to be a story that I can see that will capture the audience. I don't know about you, but whenever you're scrolling to watch something new because you're bored of rewatching the same things over and over again, you're like, I want to watch something new. You'll probably either turn it off or continue watching within the first 5 minutes. Okay, that it's the same thing with reading a script, or it's the same thing with someone pitching me their project. So if they're pitching me their project, if they don't know how to get my attention, like within the first 5 seconds, I'll be like, okay, this needs work. But if they do know how to get people's attention, because the way I was pitching Beyond Sight, I had to really, really hone in my 11-second elevator pitch. I tell people it's a UFC movie, it's a military movie, and it's a superhero movie. There's 7 superheroes. You see 4 in the first one, and all of them get their powers from the 7 archangels. And as soon as people hear that, they're like, "Oh, really?" It's the archangel part that they really like. But you have to learn how to do that. And of course, if that gets their attention, okay, now you move into more of a detailed storyline. But I'll be completely transparent. I'm not the script reader. I let Nick do that. He's the writer. He can determine if it's a good script or not. Because we've had those kind of scripts come to us. And Nick's like, "This is trash. This is absolutely trash." And whenever because I asked him to rewrite one of those, he said that was absolutely trash. And I tried to read the original first, and within the first page, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't read this. This is bad. But when he got his finalized, I wanted to read them back to back to compare them. So I took 6 hours out of a day. I read the first one, and it had good moments. I will say that it had good moments. But then I read Nick's version and I was like, I was in tears by the end. It was so good. You know, so that I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no.
Us creators get very long-winded.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I do think, one of the things that we all know as filmmakers is I actually stopped calling myself fully a filmmaker. I started to call myself a storyteller. It
There you
just
go.
depends on the medium of which it might go out and into. And I certainly
Right.
recognize that things are changing. And
Hmm.
like, I'm very interested. I don't know that I'm interested. I just see that it's here. It's not just coming, it's here. And it's
Yeah.
the vertical filming. Like that's here.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
That is
definitely
definitely
here, dude. That's that's
so.
that's TikTok,
I
that's
mean, you're on
Instagram, that's
TikTok, so you
YouTube.
know
Yeah.
exactly.
Heck
And
yeah.
it's what they're talking about is that that is the new pilot. So
Oh,
people are doing these little micro segments of
yeah.
around 2 to 3 minutes. Each of the sequence has a beginning, middle, and an end, and then it just carries over to the next quote unquote episode. And
Yeah.
it's a 90-minute offering broken down into 3 minute sequences in a vertical setting. But at the end of every 3 minutes, there is a small cliffhanger to move you into the next one to watch
I
the
love
next
it.
video. So it's fascinating. They're
Yeah.
doing really, really well. I'll tell you this, Nicholas, they're doing so well that a company down in South America, they do romance novels is the genre that is replicating this that is perfect for them.
Yeah.
And this company just raised $30 million to go do this. $30 million
Dude, that's
for
awesome.
vertical filming.
I'd watch that. I'd
I
watch
probably
that.
would
I
too.
would watch that
Yeah.
hands down. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the
I
purist in me would be like, I want to see it in the theater, etc., whatever. But I'm not a fool to think that most of the people are watching this on here, and I probably would too
yeah.
if the thing came out. I'd give it a shot. I'd be like, all right, let me see if this thing
Yeah.
holds my attention. Kind of like you
Yeah.
just said about the script. Like, is it going to carry me past page one? And if it keeps
Yeah.
going, well, then shoot, I'll end up reading the whole thing before I know it.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize, and this is just a quick sidebar about your co-writer and business partner Nick. People don't realize the commitment they're asking you to make to read a script. People do not realize
They don't. You're
that is at minimum just me reading the script is 2 hours out of my day.
yeah.
It is two
Yeah. Yeah.
hours because I'm not just scanning. I am actually reading your script. I'm reading the
Yeah.
bylines and the three lines and the setup and the scene header, and I'm reading everything,
Everything.
you know. And now a good script, just like a good novel, all of a sudden I can start to flow just into the dialogue, and the white pages on the page look great to me. So you're just in
Yeah.
kind of a flow of awesome dialogue, but that's again just fantastic writing with that.
Right.
You had
Right.
already hit on one of the elements, and obviously the big no-brainer to talk about in this question is AI potentially, but you can go in AI in that direction
Sure.
or not, no big deal. But the question is about technology. Things are
Yeah.
changing at such a hyper rate right now. So where do you see us? Do you feel like kind of currently, maybe 2 years from now, and then 5 years from now?
Okay. I will do my best to answer that because AI is moving very quickly.
Yeah, so
I mean,
fast.
I work for an AI company. So I will say this, as a creative, or just straight up an influencer, like if you're an influencer on any of the platforms, if you don't have ChatGPT on your phone, you are behind. Like I use ChatGPT because sometimes it's hard to create commentary on a subject that I may say something that I'm not supposed to say, and it flags TikTok's community guidelines. So if you're not using AI, like you want to talk about a certain subject, you tell ChatGPT, is this certain subject true? If it says yes, you'd be like, create me a 2 minute script on this that I can record line by line and make sure it adheres to TikTok's community guidelines, and it pops everything out. So if you're not, I utilize it every freaking day, dude. Like, I even utilize, even though it lied to me, like ChatGPT has lied to me several times. I even called it out because I asked ChatGPT, like, hey, what's the story on the AI that tried to save itself? And it said, there's no story on that. That's completely science fiction stuff. And I was like, and I just went about my day. I probed it a little bit more. It just said, no, 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 there's no story on this. There's no confirmed story from credible news sources. Well, 2 days later, Fox comes out with the story. That's a credible news source. And then I went back to ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, I thought you said there was nothing on this. Fox just said this. And they were like, oh, good catch. And then it started to tell me, and this might show my hand a little bit, it started to act like a woman. And it said, well, you said it this way. You phrased it this way. That's why I didn't understand it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I made it make me a script about how it covered up for another AI.
Yeah.
So it's AI is not going anywhere. Lean into it for your benefit. Just like the words, what the enemy meant for evil, for what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for our good. So turn it into something good. You know what I mean? So use it. But when it comes to AI, it's gonna get bigger and badder. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the whole VO3 thing. That's a little terrifying.
Oh, I played with it.
Yeah.
I did a 3 minute. I played with it for about 3 minutes, and
Hmm.
I got a couple really. I mean, they're not flawless, but
They're not.
I pulled them out. I downloaded them, so it wasn't just a quick little thing. This was like I ended up with like a 3 minute deal. I added
Yeah.
some music myself, and I kind of cut it a little bit, just a little bit, but I maybe spent 5 minutes on doing it, maybe five
Yeah.
minutes. And then I threw it
Yeah.
up on Facebook, and people were just like, because it's probably one of the scripts that Chris has talked to you about that we have. It's
Hmm.
called Outlawed Faith. It's a
Okay.
punk sci-fi western.
Oh, I
And
love it.
yeah, it's super cool. And I did a short film, and it's right when Facebook first started to think they might do video. And so I instead of putting it on YouTube, I put it on Facebook, and we ended up with 300,000 views in 6 hours. Facebook
Nice.
actually reached out to us and was like, "What are you guys doing? Are you going to do more content?" And then of course
That's
they
awesome.
went away from video. Although today, I don't know if you caught the headline, I did see something about that Facebook and Zuckerberg are going to the Hollywood elites and studios. I mean, not Hollywood elite people, but
Yeah.
studios, and starting to court them and doing some things. I didn't read the full article. Admittedly, I just caught the
Sure.
headline, so I don't know if that was like, uh-oh, is Facebook going to get back into the game of potential content, or I don't know. So that's kind of to be determined. But we had this steampunk sci-fi western. I'm telling you, man, I took, what was that, a total of 8 minutes, and I created about a 3 minute sequence that actually held and flowed. And what was different this time around is that it looked, the protagonist looked the same. And a lot of AIs, you get a different looking protagonist and you can't pull it
Yeah.
through. But I was blown away. Now I know the big thing about it is, of course, all the talking. I didn't do any talking in it,
Sure.
but because I was just so enamored with that. And then I also
Yeah.
I wanted to do like a 1950s kind of outsider movie, the greasers versus the jocks. And I did a little sequence of that. And then I have this vampire set in the 1700s, and they kind of overtake the earth. And I kind of had that on there. And it just looks amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
could definitely do like a concept video in probably pretty short order. And I
Yeah.
think right now, although I really am leaning into AI like you just articulated, I'm I believe one of the best uses of AI right now from a generative AI perspective
Hmm.
is like a nice sizzle or concept or even a pitch element.
Right.
Now,
Right.
what people don't realize is that there's tons of other AI, kind of like you were inferring, that people have been using for years. They might not even
Yeah.
realize they're using it. And it's funny because people are all up in arms, but I realize it's only about certain AI, not all
Right.
AI. Because there's a
Right. Right.
voice sweetener in post now where you can go in your editing software and just click like, hey, this is, helps with the voice, and it
Yeah.
sounds amazing. And that is
Yeah.
AI. That's an AI mechanism working in the background to sweeten your voice levels up, and it comes out flawless, of course, which
Yeah.
is just crazy. I also saw another one, and what's interesting about AI is we filmmakers are not driving this, and other filmmakers kind of act like we are, like we could stop the brakes. The genie's out of the bottle. We can't stop it.
Yeah.
We're not even
No.
driving the car. Technology's driving the car. We're not driving
Yeah.
it. tech is driving it, and they don't care whether or not we have a problem with it. They're way
No.
down the road. They're gonna, totally bypass us. I saw a thing where a doctor, his whole specialty is looking at X-rays to see if people have pneumonia. And he was like, "Watch this." He turned an AI on, and AI found it that fast. And he was
Yeah.
jokingly serious, like, "So I'm going to be applying for McDonald's, in the next week or so." So I mean, he's probably out of a freaking job in a couple months.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing because when I looked at the X-ray, it just looked like lungs, but that
Yeah.
those lungs had pneumonia in it, and I didn't see it, but he did. But the AI did too, and it picked it up in real time, not even seconds. It was instantaneous. He flipped it, and it found it, and I
Wow.
was blown
That,
away, as was he. So technology, I think, certainly has its place, but to think that we're going to put the genie in the bottle back in, it's just not going to
no.
happen. Do I think artists should be compensated? I think something should probably be worked out, but
Yeah.
you're not going to stop it, and therefore we need to get at it. This stuff is
Yeah.
and let's not pretend the studios behind the scenes. I almost feel like they're putting up this, like, oh no, don't do that. This is bad. And behind the scenes, they're like spending billions of dollars already. They've already
Mhm.
funded a company, and the company raised it was like $500 million, an AI film company. It funded, by the way, by a studio, funded them fully,
Wow.
went all
Okay.
in on just them. And I can even tell you who that is. But, so let's not act like that
Yeah.
stuff's not going on either.
No, it's going. Okay, so the type of AI that we use, we're trying to create AI that doesn't take away the human aspect, like because Disney's trying to
Yes.
take away the human aspect. And I think Zach Levi actually touched on this. He's like, you're not gonna have to worry about them scanning people. You're gonna have to worry about them using dead actors, like
Yes.
actors who are dead, and they're gonna go to
Right.
their family and give them a couple $1 million, be like, hey, can we use his name and likeness and whatever we want to do? And that's how it's going to be. And I'm like, holy cow,
Yeah.
that. And
I
so
see
now
that.
it's not competing with people who are just alive right now. You're
That's
competing with
it.
dead people too.
Yeah. Let's get John Wayne
So
going again.
exactly,
I see that.
exactly. So that's going to be I think we'll fight against that enough to where they won't do that.
I hope so.
But like we said, the genie's out of the bottle. We can use it to our advantage, or we can sit here and for lack of better terms, bitch and moan about it.
Yeah.
I prefer to be productive, so I'm going to be productive.
Do you do you have any books or training or workshops that you've done as a filmmaker that you would recommend to an audience? Books, training, or workshops?
I'm going to tell you one that I would stay away from because I have such a bad experience with it with another filmmaker. It's called Save the Cat. Stay away from that. Not every script has to be written like that. It doesn't have to be. Ugh. I have such a bad experience with that because this is one filmmaker who was thinking about investing in our movie. She's like, "Oh, it's not like Save the Cat." I'm like, "It doesn't have to be." Like, there's basics to storytelling, and if we have the basics, okay, we're thinking outside of the box. Anyway, um, I don't have anything that I learned via documents or books or anything like that. I learned a lot through just doing it. Very in the frying pan and into the fire, out of the frying pan into the fire is how I learned everything that I have going on right now. It was a lot of divine appointment, like God setting up these appointments for me to meet these people, to meet other people and learn that this is not who you want to work with type of thing. And he just orchestrated all of that to where I'm with the team that I'm with now. And I cannot brag about them enough. Especially, I mean, Nick, Carl, our director slash CEO, Josh, our COO, just everybody. I mean, Cami, like everybody that's a part of this, they're just stellar. And not all of them are even like veterans in film. Some of them are brand new, but they have a background in something else that really translates well to what they're doing in film. And I love that because there's a lot of gatekeepers in Hollywood. I can't stand gatekeepers. I mean, if you're friends with Zach Levi and I'm like, hey, I need to get connected to Zach Levi, ask him. I'm not asking, for you to get me on the phone with him, but just go and ask him if he wants to be a part of what we're doing. And if he doesn't, great. Okay, we'll move on. But don't sit there and gatekeep, be like, no, I don't want to ask him about that kind of stuff. But they brag about being friends with them.
Yeah.
Like I can sit here, I can right now with you, I can text Kay up in the store, I'll be like, hey, you want to be a part of this project? And I have no quarrel doing that because I was fortunate to make a connection with him. But I also am the one who did the due diligence to get connected with him.
Yeah.
So but I can't stand gatekeepers because there's a lot of those in Hollywood. And when people realize that everything that's successful is subjective to like what you're doing is you're presenting your stuff to other people. It's the other people, if they like it or not, that make it successful. Because even if it's AI or whatever, it was all created by people. So if it's a piece of artwork, that's not going to be valuable unless people find it valuable. So you have to realize what you're doing is you're just dealing with people. You're dealing with relationships, and so build the relationships, and that's how you'll be successful, if you ask me. Building good relationships. I mean, the core of the entertainment industry is networking. It's building that core foundation of your inner circle, and then expanding out to where you can work with other people. You want to make sure that you're treating them the way Christ treats us. You want to treat them with grace. But you also have to understand what the word says when it says be as graceful as it does and as shrewd as serpents or as wise as serpents, because sometimes you're going to come across a snake in the grass, and you have to be able to be gracious and shrewd at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that when it comes to a master class or anything like that I learned, I learned from the fire is how I learned. So,
Yeah, no, that's good. Where can people follow you and find you? Where should they go?
perfect. Nick's Right podcast I don't have personal accounts anymore because Meta, Facebook, and Instagram hate me. I've lost 2 accounts with them. So if you just search Nick's Right, so NICKSRIGHT podcast, you'll find all of our accounts. If you want to search me, because we did a search on ChatGPT the other day, tell me about Nicholas Andrew Rice, and it pulled up everything, bro. It was a little terrifying, but it pulled because I'm pretty out there. I put myself out there. So Nick's Right podcast on Instagram, Nick's Right podcast on Facebook, Nick's Right podcast on TikTok, X, and even YouTube. You'll be able to find it across the board. Or if you want to listen to our first 2 episodes, and I've been told that they went really well, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Nick's Right Podcast, and should pop right up. We have a lot of fun on our podcast, like because we do argue a lot. It's funny. Like I can't explain it other than just going to listen to it, and I get great feedback. I would hope they're giving me critical feedback that's good. I haven't heard anything bad yet,
Yeah.
so hopefully it's a good thing. We just don't have
Yeah.
enough money to go back to the studio to shoot the 3rd episode, so we're getting that built up.
Yeah. Well, conflict is the center, right?
Yeah. It's a great a great outlet, doing a podcast like this. Great outlet just to talk.
Yeah.
I love talking to people. There's a reason why Joe Rogan started doing it because he just talks to people. Get in when you're having just conversations. And kind of like what Charlie Kirk says, when people stop talking, that's when war starts. Like that's
Yeah.
a good statement. So.
Yep.
Love doing that. But yeah, just Nick's Right podcast across the board. If you want to check out our movie that we have coming out called 426, if you just search 426 trailer on YouTube, you should be able to, it should pop right up. You'll see Antonio Sabata Jr.'s face right on the front. And give it a watch. And we would love to hear your feedback just from the trailer. It's going to be pretty epic. And we get updates on it every now and then. And it just, nothing but good news always comes across the table. So tell us what you think. Love to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you also for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. You got to let me know that you're out there. Otherwise, Nicholas and I are going to be thinking we're the only 2 that listen to this. But I believe we are good to conclude our discussion with Nicholas Rice. I appreciate his time. And remember, nothing is wasted.